Home Author Podcast. My name is Vicky Weber, and if you've been following along on my author journey, then you know that my first 3 books were not successful. In fact, the other day I pulled up my my sales report for my first book to show another author, and that book has sold 63 copies to date. Yeah. Now, after those 3, my 4th book is the one where I really learned what I was doing, and I made a 5-figure profit off of that book release alone. And it's what enabled all of my books past that to make Amazon's bestseller list, Barnes & Noble's bestseller list, and really put me on the map and start making money with writing children's books. What that means is my first 3 books certainly did not do that. But I'll be honest, when I started, I thought I knew what I was doing. I was so confident. I had researched so much prior to publishing my book, and I really thought I had a solid understanding of how the industry worked and what I needed to do to be successful. Looking back, I feel really silly at how much I didn't know, but I didn't know it. So in today's podcast, I want to share what things I changed between my first 3 books and my 4th to start having success, start bringing in income, and start having the impact that I've had on young readers by selling a lot of books. The first thing that I changed was I went through a lot more editing. When I did my first 3 books, they aren't bad books by any means. And in fact, there's a lot of people that love what I've written and those stories in particular. But there is a big difference between a good book and a great book. Great books are the type of books that you give as gifts at birthday parties and other holidays and other events. Great books are the kind that readers just don't put down. They talk about it to other people. They share about it on social media. They read it to their kids time and time and time again. They gift it to their teachers. They bring it into their lessons in the classroom. It snowballs. And a good book is just a good book. There's nothing wrong with it. People will like it, but it won't snowball. And what really separates a good book from a great book is all the little details. You know, are there any plot holes? Are there any unnecessary characters? Are there multiple layers to your book and your characters and what they're doing? Does it have the picture book magic moments? Does your introduction drop us into a scene, drop us into a moment? Are we discovering things along with the characters, or are you handing it to us on a silver platter? You know, is there buy-in? Is it teaching more than one thing? Is it relatable to children? Okay, and some of this is, of course, subjective, but what I found was the more editing I did, the better my book became. That meant going through critique partners, going through beta readers, sending it to friends and family who I know would give me constructive criticism. And then it meant hiring a professional, not once, not twice, but many times until the book was as polished and as solid as it could be. That it was explored from every possibility and every angle, and it felt strong in every way I could look at it. Now, that does mean that sometimes you'll have to make tough decisions. For example, in Laszlo Learns Recorder, I've had some people mention to me that the right hand isn't being used on the recorder. And in real life, that is something that you would want to put there. The problem is that with the illustrations, it ended up looking like the kids' hands were covering extra notes, and it ended up looking really confusing to the reader. And so I had to make the decision to just have the character leave that hand off, even though in real life you would use both hands. But how you illustrate something is a little bit different than what it would look like in real life. Another example is in Rhythm Rescue. I named one of the places in the book Downbeat Street, and I thought I was so clever because the downbeat is where music starts and Downbeat Street was where this musical book began. I thought I was so clever, and it went through all of these critiques and beta readers and all of this stuff, and then I got a paid edit, and the editor came back to me and said, "Why is the street sad?" And I was like, "What?" And then I realized the opposite of upbeat is downbeat. And non-musicians would interpret the word downbeat differently than musicians would. So I had to make a decision. I either had to leave it in or make some changes. And I had to really think about, who is my audience? Who am I attracting? What do I want them to get out of this book? So I did some additional testing. I got more feedback. I got more editing. And eventually I settled on just Beat Street instead of Downbeat Street. But that's an active decision that I had to make, that I wouldn't have even thought about if I did not get feedback from people on the outside. Sometimes you're going to agree with that feedback and other times you won't, but knowledge is power, and you can be intentional with the changes that you make if you have that feedback up front. Another thing I changed between those two launches, besides more editing, was I invested in business courses. And the reason I did this is because I couldn't find anything out there at the time that really taught how to launch a book from start to finish. Everything I found out there was either for novelists, or it only taught like one piece of the industry or one part of the process of writing or publishing a book. And so I knew that I had to create my own system, and I had to crack this on my own and figure it out on my own. And so I started taking business courses, and I had to apply everything I learned there to everything I knew about children's books and my audience. And that's really what propelled me to where I am now. I had to sit down and develop a strategy, right? And I had to sit down and think about what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, how am I reaching these people? What is my goal with everything I'm doing? Where is my effort taking me? Where should I spend more time? Where should I spend less time? And it was a super involved and exhausting process. But once I did, I ended up coming up with a plan that works for not only my books, but other people's books as well. And so that's probably the biggest difference between my initial books and my current ones now is the strategy, the plan. And if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would have started with courses a lot sooner. I would have started that way, way before I did. It would have sped up my timeline. I would have wasted a lot less money and a lot less time and energy. And I know some people now will say, "Oh, well, your first 3 books sell better now, right?" And yes, they do. But there's still a fraction of the sales that my current and new books sell when you look at them side by side. My first book, like I said, has still only sold 63 copies to this day. And that's exactly why I started At Home Author, and why I'm doing this podcast, and why I put out the content that I do, because I don't want other people to go through the same hiccups and the same hurdles and the same stresses and time wasters and money wasters that I did. I don't want others to have to put the puzzle pieces together themselves, because it is stressful and it's time consuming. And honestly, who has time for that anymore? And that's exactly why I do what I do. So that would be the second thing that I changed. The third big thing kind of ties into taking courses, and it was that I started marketing a lot earlier. I really used to think that first you write the book, and then you publish the book, and then you market the book, and that's how it goes. But the reality is, it's all intertwined. It is all interconnected. The writing ties into the marketing, and there are things about publication you need to know while you're writing in order to avoid costly mistakes and to have a system that flows without the hurdles and without the stress. I've had some students that, get down to crunch time because they haven't given themselves enough time to grow an audience or to find the answers or to do all the tasks that are required of releasing a book and writing a book and publishing a book. So really, those are the big changes that I made. And I know that this is just the Cliff Notes version, but those are the major changes that I made. I edited a ton more. I learned a ton more. And I started marketing. I started my strategy so much sooner. And I learned that everything is connected. And it's not just about writing a book and then getting it out there. It's just as important that the whole process supports one another start to finish. I hope that this has been helpful, but if you do find that you need more resources or you have more questions, make sure you check out all of At Home Author's resources for ways that we can help you. Thanks for listening to the At Home Author podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to get notified when we release new episodes. Reviews are always appreciated. For more helpful content on getting your book published or successfully marketed, visit athomeauthor.com for all of our resources. See you next time.